Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can create your own very unique abstract art and how you can upcycle your home decor items using joint compound as a medium. This art technique is very minimal and super popular right now, and there is so much inspiration on Instagram and Pinterest, and you can basically upcycle so many of your home decor items like your vases, your lamps, picture frames, and so many more. And I'm super excited to share what I created with it. But before we get into it, if you're new here and if you love DIY projects, make sure you like this video and also subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on my upcoming DIYs. Now, coming back to the projects, the first DIY is to make a simple wall art. I got this canvas from Pier 1 a long time ago. It has a variation of peach and red colors, and I wanted to turn it into something that goes with my current style. I wanted this wall art to have texture and be very interesting, and I'm also planning to put a spin on this, so without any further ado, let's get right into this. My canvas has a few paint strokes, but we'll cover them up in the following steps. So I first wanted to paint it a simple off-white color to start off as a blank canvas. But if you're working with a white canvas, you can totally proceed to the next step. The next thing we're gonna need is the joint compound. I picked this one up at Home Depot and I got this spreader set from Amazon. This is the one that goes from pink to white after it dries down. Using the spreader, I went in with my joint compound in no particular order, and I kept switching between the larger knife and the smaller knife to smooth it all out. It was my first time using joint compound, so I took my own time spreading it and adding texture simultaneously. As you're working with it, you can create as much or as little texture just by applying more or less pressure. This layer is going to be very abstract, so you don't have to make it perfect, so just have fun with it and feel free to go back and forth until you're happy with the design. I wanted this to look imperfect at this point because we're going to be balancing the imperfection with a perfect round circle in the following steps. So this is the design I came up with, and we're going to let this dry thoroughly overnight. It's the next day and we're going to paint all of the joint compound today, which will create a nice clean finish. I'm going for kind of a warm white tone, so for that I mixed the same white chalk paint from before and a light mocha color and also some baking soda. It basically is a slight cream color, and I gave one generous coat of this on all of the canvas on the top and the sides. I made sure to get into all the tiny grooves. There's a lot of texture going on, so you want to make sure that you're moving your brush back and forth to get into every little crevice. The baking soda also really helped me fill in all the gaps and any tiny cracks that may have formed overnight. Next, I wanted to create a circle in the center in a contrasting color. Line drawings and graphic prints are really popular right now, so I wanted to do a play on texture, add some line art, and then combine them with a graphic element. So to first bring in color to this art piece, I used acrylic paints and created a dark terracotta color using some light and warm browns and filled in the circle with it. I made sure to get into all the tiny grooves by using a thin brush for the border and a broad brush to fill in the circle. There's a lot of texture going on, so you want to make sure that you're moving your brush in all directions. Next, I'm adding a floral element to this piece. So I just googled a picture of eucalyptus leaves and I'm going to draw a eucalyptus line design, and this definitely does not need to be perfect and will only serve as a guide for the final version. The next step is to recreate this line art on the canvas using yarn. I cut out some yarn pieces, and using the design as a guide, I started laying out the yarn pieces in the form of leaves. Next, I took some Mod Podge, applied it where I wanted the leaves to go, so I basically made the leaf shape with Mod Podge and just placed the yarn piece over it. You can also use a macrame cord based on the size of your canvas, and also use hot glue instead of Mod Podge. I cut the excess yarn out and then just proceeded with the rest of the leaves and also the stem. Visualizing the design on the paper really helped me out a lot and just made it easier for me to adjust the yarn as I went. But if you're comfortable, feel free to draw the design directly on this painted canvas with a pencil. This project is also kind of a thrift flip for me because I'm repurposing a canvas that I already had with me, so I'm so glad I'm able to make this wall art in a more cost and time effective way. However, there are so many options for the base. You could also create your own base using cardboard, picture frames, or even wood. At the end, I decided to add little veins in some of the bigger leaves to make them look full. I'm at the end of gluing down the eucalyptus line art, and here's how the final piece is looking. Not every leaf is perfect, but that's totally okay because it's just meant to be an imperfect and handmade piece of wall decor, and I really like that it's a very pretty textural art piece which is really fun. Let me know in the comments what you think. I wanted to create this trendy aged terracotta look we see on Pottery Barn, West Elm, Studio Mcgee, especially this bowl of theirs that looks amazing, and this bowl was kind of my main inspiration. I got this tray from Target long ago, so I finally decided to upcycle it. It's basically unfinished wood, and all we mainly need to achieve this vintage looking earthy aesthetic is joint compound and some paint colors. I actually painted the tray an off-white color as I did on the canvas in the previous project, but I found later that I didn't have to do it, so let's take our project outdoors and jump into the actual first step. Start applying joint compound using the biggest applicator you have. In this step, my main goal was to cover up the whole tray in the product. So I started with the base and I basically just created a thick textured layer, and all I'm doing here is take my putty knife, dip it in the joint compound and then wipe it in all different directions. I used a smaller knife and also a plastic knife to cover the inner corners, edges and handles. Joint compound sticks pretty well to any surface, so there are so many options for what you can use this product on. You can use this medium even on the cardboard boxes you have at home to give them shape and structure, and there really are endless possibilities on what you can make with it without spending a ton of money. On the first day, I completed working on the inside of the tray, so I left it to dry overnight. You can set it outside to dry in the sun for a few hours, but if you're going to leave it indoors, just let it dry overnight. The next day, my plan was to cover up the outside of the tray and also wanted all the edges and corners to be rounded off and not have sharp angles. So for that, you can see how I'm working with small lumps of joint compound and basically pressing them in with my finger along the edges, and you'll also see later in the video that I kind of model all of them into soft and handmade looking edges and corners. Also, if you work on this project with your own hands, unlike me, make sure you wear gloves as this product will dry out your hands. Joint compound takes a while to dry, so there's lots of time for you to modify how you want it to look. So after the tray was semi-dry, I took a cup of warm water and a paintbrush to blend out the streaks and uneven texture at the corners and edges and kind of added some roundness to them. So the next day, here's how it looks after the first coat has fully dried. It is actually coming together really nicely, and you can see how I managed to slightly get rid of the sharpness on the edges. I went ahead and applied a second coat to kind of add one more heavy layer to form that terracotta clay-like texture. For the second coat, I found my hands did the best job of spreading the compound between all of the grooves and ridges. I basically just grabbed some compound straight from the bucket and smeared it all over the tray surface. Again, you have to make sure you have gloves on for this step. What's fun about this product is that you can layer it as much as you want, as I did for all these corners. In the end, I basically went over the whole surface with a wet paintbrush, and it was almost like icing a cake and worked so well to get that smooth pottery look I was hoping to achieve. After a day, the tray has fully dried and was ready to be sanded. Using a fine grit sandpaper, I gave it a nice finish and removed the grainy areas. Take your time in this step to kind of refine the shape and then wipe off all the dust with the hairdryer or a wet cloth. It's finally time to add depth and a sense of age with layers of paint. I wanted the tray's base color to be off-white like in the inspiration, so I added the light mocha shade by Apple Barrel to some white chalk paint by Folk Art and gave it one coat. I'm keeping it true to the original inspiration by making it off-white, and you can see how the paint completely covers the grainy texture of the joint compound and gives it a clean finish. Now to add the earthy tones to the tray, I'm using a variation of 3 colors. I'll list everything down below. The 2 chalk paint shades I used are Oatmeal and Sheepskin by Folk Art and Territorial Beige by Apple Barrel. First, I began to randomly dab on the oatmeal color, which is like a light cream color, using a slightly damp paper towel. Then I took another wet paper towel with a very slight amount of paint on it and kind of pressed it on in random spots. I then kind of wiped the previous paint spots off in order to blend them around. This color helped me create a slightly yellowy layer to the base, and I wanted this shade to add age to the tray like it was wearing down in the sunlight. Next, we're going to add the sheepskin color, which is like a light grey shade. I took some paint on a fresh paper towel, removed all the excess and started applying it in random spots starting from the corners. I'm trying to bring in the grey in spots where it might be handled more and also create some shadows. Finally, I added the brown color to the tray. Using a dry paintbrush, I tried to concentrate this darker shade mainly on the deeper crevices and corners. To make it look natural, I blended it in with a damp paper towel. You can see here how it really added depth and makes it look like dust and dirt have been settling on those spots. Also, instead of the paper towel, you can also use a wet sponge for this whole aging process. I have seen so many DIY recreations of this kind of aged or found pottery on Pinterest and Instagram, like on vases, bowls, lamps, mirror frames, and even furniture pieces like side tables, wall shelves, and so many more. So you definitely need to pick up some joint compound the next time you're at the hardware store. If you're working on big projects, you can use wet sponges or spatulas for rendering your surfaces. After the painting process is done, the last thing to do is apply one coat of matte spray paint onto the tray to make it easier to clean and prevent it from feeling dusty while maintaining that matte terracotta look. At the end, I styled my tray with some vase fillers and candle holders. And that is it, you guys. I hope you guys took some inspiration from it, and I love this new technique of incorporating texture with joint compound. I really like the simplicity of the off-white color because it looks so unique and it just totally adds a minimal and raw look to my space. So that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed DIYing with me today. I love how much interest joint compound added to these projects, so I'm definitely going to try it out in my future projects. So stay tuned for my upcoming videos, and also follow me on Instagram because I share some sneak peeks of my upcoming videos over there. And thanks so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.